Okay, good morning. I was just making sure that I was in the right spot, and I'm in the right spot. I think so. So today is day 3 of the 12 days of Christmas, and we are going to be working with IOD molds and clay, and we're going to be making little risers. So I did one up partially last night, or yesterday actually, so it would be good and dry and we could paint it today. So I'm going to switch camera angles, and hi Susan. I'm going to switch camera angles so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, so this is just, I have a bunch of these random cut-offs of plywood. They're cutouts of stuff. So I just sanded them, and this one's an oval. And what I did was I did the mold around the whole edge. And there's a seam right there. I'm going to show you how to, sorry, my camera angle's flipped, so it makes me confused. I'll show you how to fill that if you want to fill those. You don't have to worry about them. They can be rustic and fun, but good morning, Linda. So, and then I have these cute little, I just got a bag of them from a thrift store. They're knobs for cupboard doors. And I just scuff sanded it a little bit so we can glue them on the bottom as little legs. And then it'll be a cute little riser for a centerpiece or any kind of little, it could be Christmassy or not, depends how you finish it off, I guess. Okay, so we're going to get going. I'm going to be using this square one, kind of square, rectangular-ish. We're going to be using Iron Orchid Designs air dry clay. So this dries probably, I'm going to say 12 hours, 12 to 24 hours, depending how thick your mold is and the humidity, temperature, that kind of stuff. In Alberta, this does shrink a little bit because our climate is so dry. So a way to kind of avoid, like this one didn't go too bad, actually. There's a little bit of separation right in these seams. Little bit of cracking, but it actually dried pretty good considering I didn't paint it. If you want to slow down the drying process, you paint right over them when they're wet, and it just kind of takes them longer to dry so they don't shrink so bad. We're also going to be using, these are the 3 trimmings molds. There's trimmings 1, 2, and 3. This is 1. So I think I'm going to use this one. It makes a really good, I think a really good border, and it's about the right thickness or width. So I think that's the one I'm going to use today. But then this is trimmings 2. So this one's really nice. It's got this nice rope one, and then there's wider. The detail in these are amazing. And you can use these with a resin or any kind of a clay, pie crust, candy, chocolate. They're heat safe up to 425 Fahrenheit. So Fahrenheit? Yeah, 425 Celsius would be pretty darn hot. This is the one I used yesterday. I used this one. So that's this one. Anyways. So those are your options for the trimmings. There are, I forget how many different mold sets there are. There's a lot. Probably 30, I think. Close to 30. So these are the 3 with the trimmings, though. The rest there's all kinds. There's butterflies. There's I don't know why butterflies is the only one coming to my head right now, but we are going to get going. This is just cornstarch. So easy, simple Walmart cornstarch. And I use any kind of an old paintbrush, or this is a dollar store makeup brush, Wet n Wild makeup brush. It's got really soft, kind of fluffy. I use that now. So what we do is, if anybody has any recommendations for those little like stools on wheels that you can raise and lower the heights, let me know. Because I'm on my second one from Princess Auto. and they don't stay up. So I find myself sinking randomly. Okay, so you just brush your cornstarch in, and then I just bang out the excess, and it doesn't matter if it's on there. What that does is it acts as a release agent so that your clay doesn't stick to the mold. And then this is brand new brick of clay. So what I'm going to do is grab a chunk off. That's probably way too big. The new molds have, where's the newest one? This is number 3. So the new molds have these measurements. So 34 milliliters or 51 grams to make this mold right here. So the 34 milliliters is what you would use if you're using a 2-part resin. So you know exactly how much you need to create this mold. The grams is, yeah, 51 grams it says. So if you had a little kitchen scale handy, you could weigh out your chunk of clay so you'd know exactly what you need to put in there. I'm not going to be that technical. Plus I'm using one of the older mold sets, so I don't have those numbers on there. Yeah, the sinking randomly, Vita, it's brutal. I bought 2 of these little round wheelie stools, I call them, at Princess Auto a couple years ago, and one was for my husband in the shop. They're those little mechanic stools, and one was for me here at the store. And his stayed up perfectly fine, and mine would sink. So I traded, and now this one started doing it just this week. So that's awesome. I don't know if the stool's trying to tell me something, or I just have to stop buying cheap Princess Auto stools. Okay, so I have way too much clay in here. I'm just gonna push it in. Make sure it's really in there so you get really good detail in your mold. And then this is just, it's a pretty stiff putty knife from Canadian Tire. It's got this beveled edge. You can use whatever kind of, you can use a credit card if you want, an old credit card or a debit card. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrape off my excess here. And I'm just going really light pressure because I just want to get off this extra. This is where having the measurements comes in super handy, so you don't have all of this extra. But I'm just going to put this back in my little bag, and I can use it again. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of push this down just to smooth out the back. Make sure it's nice and smooth. And I always wipe this off as I'm going, because if your clay dries on here, then you get like all these bumps and lumps and grooves. So this will come out super easy. There you go. This one's so pretty. I like the detail on it. Okay, move that aside. Let's see how much I get, coverage I get on this baby. So I'm going to have to make 3 of these. Okay, just put that down. This is just normal Lepage, however you say it, wood glue. It's the Express Carpenter's glue. I use the Express, it's a little bit thicker. It sets up in 10 minutes. And I've just poured it in this little dollar store squeeze tube. That works pretty good. Just makes it a little bit more manageable. Grab my wet wipe handy. And I'm just going to use my finger to spread that thin coat. I don't want too much on the outside. Wipe the extra glue off. Okay. And when these are fresh and wet like they are, you can totally bend them around corners. So now all I'm going to do is just make sure any of these little gaps, I want it to be right glued down. This is a good way to cover up that kind of nasty plywood edge, right? I hate using plywood for projects because you see that plywood edge and it just, ugh. Unless you can cover it up somehow. Okay, I'm going to put that aside and let's make another one. When you get all good and experienced with making these molds, I'm actually going to try it with this one. Hopefully it's not a failure. But you can make it as one, like you can have connecting ones. I'm obviously not explaining it. My brain's not working, so I'll just show you. So I'm going to take a pretty big chunk out this time because I want to make a double length. It's like when you're kids and you played with Play-Doh or remember plasticine? I don't even know if you can get that anymore. Okay, I just want to see where I'm at lengthwise here. I need 2 lengths. Oh yeah, we're good. We are good. Okay, so now we're going to just start. Let me see what's happening here. Pushing this one in. Really gently kind of just cut that excess off. Make sure you clean the edge so it doesn't pull, so it's a nice sharp. Once you get the hang of working with the clay, it's so versatile, so many things that you can do with it. And this little micro rim on these molds gives you that nice clean edge all the time. My stool is sinking. All of a sudden I feel like I'm nose to the table. Okay, so now this is the trickier part. So you're gonna grab and just move it down. And where am I gonna, I'm gonna match that one up right there. Oh, sorry, my head's totally over it. So what I did is I just moved it over and I'm gonna match this one up with that spot and then I'm going to just continue it on. So what this does then, it just makes one long chain of the same casting, the same mold. And I think that's going to be long enough right there, so I'm just going to take that off. Hopefully that's long enough. I can always patch one in. Hi, Tony. Yeah, that would work. That would be a good practice run, Linda. Anything, even any kind of dough that you could make, you could totally practice with that. Okay, I'm just going to smooth that out. I'm not putting a lot of pressure, but enough. And I keep the angle really low. Like if this is, try to show you this way. This is my mold laying on the table. The angle of my putty knife is really low. You don't want to go too sharp like that, because what you'll do is you'll just pull your clay up out of your mold. So keep your angle really low. Okay, so now we'll just pull the rest of that out. And even though I didn't put the cornstarch in the second time, there's still kind of enough residue in there that I was able to get it out. I don't think I would risk a number 3 without putting some more cornstarch, but that worked. Okay, so now the tricky part. This is already starting to dry and form a little crust on it. So I'm just going to add the glue here. All the way around. What's crafting without some glue on your fingers, right? It's better than glitter. Ugh, glitter. Glitter gets everywhere. Okay. So I'm going to just take, I have one of these little wooden coffee stir sticks, and I'm just going to kind of put some glue on this end of this mold right here. There already is on this side, but I'm going to kind of clean that up a little bit. And we're going to start by laying this on there very carefully without tearing it apart, getting glue all over the place. So I'm just butting it up, and I'm trying not to stretch it, because if you stretch it too much, as it dries, it's going to shrink back even more. So I'm just kind of using gravity to help me kind of lay it on here. So what this is going to do is, instead of me now having a bunch of, like if I would have just made one more and gone around the other end, I would have had a joint here, 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 and here. And I don't want to do that, so I'm doing it this way instead. And I'm trying to hold this, and my hand is starting to cramp. Just gently pushing it down. And then an X-Acto knife. And I'm just gonna cut that, and I'm gonna try to blend that in. So I don't know if you can see, But see, these two don't connect kind of how they should, but there's really nothing you can do about that. It's just the pattern of this and the length that you had to go around. I mean, you could have if you planned it out a little bit different, but honestly, it's just not that important on something like this. So you really have to look at it to see that that's wonky, and that's going to be on the side anyways. So you're going to be looking at the front, which is gorgeous, or the back, also gorgeous. So not a big deal. So see how this joint, once that's, these angles, once that's painted, and you won't even see that, like you really have to look for it. So if you kind of plan it out maybe better, you can do it that way. But so that's it. So I'm going to put this aside to dry. I'm just going to make sure that I've got this kind of pressed down and any excess glue wiped off. Not like that really matters because we're going to be painting over it anyways. But just make sure, gently push it down. You don't want to push too hard because you're going to smush all your detail. And you don't want to smush your detail. All right. So super simple, really easy. I'm just going to put this aside so we can paint. Where am I going to put it? I'll put it over here. All right. So when you're done with your clay, you don't want to leave your bag sitting there open because it'll dry out your clay. So I always fold it over and pop it in a freezer bag. I use freezer bags because they're a little bit better than just your regular sandwich bags that don't seem to want to seal anything. And then you're good. And if you're gonna be leaving it for any length of time, I will actually double bag it. So put it in another bag. Save yourself some grief and your clay from drying out. If you do find that it's starting to dry out, just grab a damp piece of paper towel and pop that in there with your clay, and the clay will absorb that dampness. Okay, I'm just putting my glue and stuff away here, and we will paint this little beauty and put her legs on and go from there. What I wanted to do with this is I want to paint it first with Dark and Decrepit, which is DIY's, one of DIY's stains. They have the Dark and Decrepit and they have the Old and Gray, which is gray. This one's got a brown tone. So if I can get the lid off, just using a paint key to just kind of pry up. There we go. Sometimes it just needs a little persuasion. The Dark and Decrepit is this nice, warm, rich brown. And my stool is sinking again. Okay. So this dries super fast. What I want to do is I want to stain it with this brown, and then when I paint it white, I can distress it back to show some of this nice dark brown. Because, well, plywood's just kind of bleh. If you want to help this move a little bit, give it a little spritz of water. You use less product and you're still getting into all those little nooks and crannies. Don't forget, this is a base coat. This is going to be underneath. So you're only going to see this through where you're distressing. Okay. This is going to be more tricky. getting into all those little nooks and crannies. I have the mister bottles here, Vita. They're on the website. They're literally called mist/mist-er bottles. I think they're under the tools tab on the shop page. I think that's where I have them. But they are the secret ingredient when it comes to some of these paint finishes. What's nice about them is that it's just a fine mist that you're getting. You're not getting the big spray with all of the water droplets that actually can leave marks on your paint. So they work really well, especially if you're like doing blending work with DIY paint. Those mister bottles are the bomb. You're welcome. And I have them here in store too, Vita. So if you're coming back for your coal black, you can pick one up. Okay, so as I'm going around this, I'm not super worried about fingerprints or anything because I'm painting over this. You can sand the clay too a little bit. So I've made ornaments with the clay where you just double up your certain molding cake castings basically, and you glue them together back to back. And then you can just nice sand that edge so that it looks like a one-piece thing. Okay. I'm just going to give this a little buzz with the heat gun so I can do the other side. Perfect. Okay, looks like we've got a good base here. Close this up. Just wipe this edge, just hopefully help. Okay, I'm going to buzz that a bit with the heat tool. Gotta make sure this stage is good and dry, because if you start painting over it then with your paint, it'll just muddy your paint. It'll mix with the brown, and you don't want that. Okay, so now I am going to, I have the wrong white here, so I'm just going to grab the right one. So I'm using DIY paint in vintage linen. So it's a nice off, it's not a bright white, it's an off white. This is an old can to kind of get the when you get to the bottom of your can like this, it sometimes gets pretty thick. DIY paint is very, very thick to start out with. Certain colors are thicker than others. But this is an old can. I haven't used this in a while. So let's use this brush. For the edges, and then this will be an easy way to just go and wet distress. With DIY paint, you can just grab a wet wipe and do a quick wet distress, and it'll take the paint off easy, give you a really nice finish. Getting the paint in all those little nooks and crannies. It's a little bit more time consuming. I'm not being super particular about it because I'm going to distress it anyways, so I'm not being super picky. I want it to look old and weathered. That is the plan. It's already drying. It dries really, really fast. Okay, this is the bottom. So I'm gonna give this, I don't want there to be a full coat here. I'm just kind of slapping it on because I'm going to wipe it back. Because I kind of want that detail and stuff in the wood to show through. So we're just kind of putting it on and then we're going to wipe it back. But you want to get it in all those little imperfections in the wood. Okay, so I'm going to, this will seem counterproductive, but I need to dry this because you have more control over your wet distress if you start with a dried paint. Sounds weird, but that's what I find works the best. And it really doesn't take long to dry it. It dries so fast. There you go. Okay, so I'm just taking a normal Kirkland wet wipe and I'm just going to start wiping. I have to give it a couple seconds for the water to actually reactivate the paint. And then it'll start coming off. It's like you're wiping, nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden, the paint starts coming off. See how it's all of a sudden it's just starting? Kind of want to see that knot. You can see these little lines. Those were kind of cracks in the So you just keep wiping until you get it to look how you want it to look. So that's why I'm doing the bottom first. Whoops. Is because it helps you kind of practice on what you're gonna want the top to look like. So see all these little bits? That's all those imperfections in the wood. And the white paint is just kind of sitting in there. And it adds character. So as your baby wipe gets kind of saturated with the white paint, you just kind of keep trading it out. And it'll bring out, instead of this gray, it's going to bring out the brown of your, you just keep wiping over spots. You can do this, you can grab like a wet cloth and do this a lot faster. But I kind of wanted to see how far I wanted to take it back until I liked it. And I kind of like this finish here. I'm trying to wait till the computer, the feed catches up because I can see it a little bit differently. I kind of like that. Okay, so now same kind of idea on the molds. So these are, you can do this, all of these steps while these molds are still wet, like the one that we just applied the molds to this morning. You can still do all this. You just have to be so careful, like just resting this on the molds. I mean, it can squish them. You have to be so careful. So in some instances, it's just easier to try to be patient and let the molds dry overnight. And then they're tougher. You can come back and be a little more savage with your distressing. DIY paint makes it really easy to wet distress. I like how that looks and those edges. So now let's paint the top. I don't want that to be a spot in my paint, so I'm just going to kind of clean up this edge a little bit. Just in case all this sketchy stuff here shows through. I want to kind of start with a clean slate. Okay. So a thing also, you can see the brush strokes really well. It's partially the thickness of the paint and it's the brush I'm using. This is a Paint Pixie Little Frenchie. Good for leaving brush strokes, but you don't always want brush strokes. So I'm going to give that a mist so it's not drying. And I'm going to mist. This is a Klingon, it's an S30. This is my go-to brush. This is probably the brush I use the most for all kinds of projects, whether it's furniture projects or little craft projects like this. It is my go-to brush. And see how that smoothed it out quite a bit? Because I don't want the stripy brush stroke on here. So I'm going to try to smooth this out as much as I can. And then I'm going to dry it, and I'm going to actually give it a second coat. There's a lot of wetting things down, drying them, wetting it, wiping it, drying it to get to the look you want. I do anyways. Okay, that is dry for a second coat. A little bit of a lump. Oh boy, bigger lump. That's what happens when you get to the bottom of your paint can. Always use water to help your paint flow, regardless of paint brand. If it's a water-based paint brand, water will help you move it better, smoother. All right. I am going to let that be good. But now we're going to dry it again so I can wet distress it again. Okay, I think that's it for that noisy thing. So here we go again. With the wet distressing. So I don't know if you're close enough to see how that kind of plays out. You can wipe it, and wipe it, and it's kind of got this gray tinge because what's happening is the white, like it's kind of gray here. The white paint is just kind of blending over. So just get a clean spot on your wet wipe and wipe over it one more time and see how that brought the brown out and just cleaned it up. That's why I go through so many wet wipes when I'm doing this. You get the distress going, you get it to kind of look how you want it to look. And then you just take a clean spot on your wet wipe and wipe over it one more time. Or if you can't find any more clean spots, you get a new one. No, Linda. Okay, Linda Boyd. No, I don't have a bowl of eggs beside me. They're little handles. And Linda Johnson, will Fusion paint wipe distress? No, it doesn't. It's a different paint. Fusion is acrylic based. DIY is clay based. You can wet distress, but it's definitely a little bit more effort. And you've got to hit, the timing has to be right. Yeah, it's just a different animal. So I don't want the top to be quite as wiped back as I did on the bottom. So I'm trying to be a little bit more random, a little bit. Sometimes it just doesn't work out and you end up repainting the whole thing and starting all over again. That happens too. But it's all part of the process. And every piece is different. So sometimes you think, oh, I have that technique down. I can nail this. And then the next piece does not cooperate the same way. All right. So I kind of like how that turned out. And I kind of like how that turned out too. This is a little more rusticy, but it's going to work good for the bottom. And then this part for the top. It'll be a cute little riser. Okay, I'm just going to quickly dry that so I can set it on its face. Perfect. So these little, I want to paint these gold. I think they're going to look kind of cool gold. but I have to put them on first. Where did I put my gold? Maybe we're gonna go copper instead. Let's go copper instead. The copper's here, so we're gonna use the copper. So this is DIY Paints Pennies from Heaven. It's a copper patina. It's got like a built-in top coat. So it doesn't exactly act like their paint does. And I knew that was gonna happen. It's more along the lines of the Dark and Decrepit. It's similar to that. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab a small, hopefully a brush that isn't a disaster. And my chair's sinking again. First, I guess I should eyeball out where I want to put these little feet. Does that look kind of even enough? I'm using the camera angle as a... I think that's gonna work. I did not plug in my hot glue gun, so I'm gonna do that right now. And hopefully that heats up in a hurry. I knew I was forgetting something. Okay, so let's mark those little spots first. You could measure this. You can be all, you know, proper and measure it out properly. Or you can be me and you can just kind of eyeball it, hope for the best. As long as it stands up, it doesn't really matter, right? Okay. Okay, so just before I glue it down, I just want to put the copper not on the bottom because I want to glue there. Get one coat at least of the copper. These are plastic knobs, so they must be like old IKEA knobs or something, I'm thinking. Which is making them fun to paint. As long as I can get one coat on there. Glad I decided to do this first coat while they're not attached, because it would have been really hard to mess around. With this while they were attached. Definitely gonna need a couple coats of copper, which is okay. Is my glue gun warm enough yet? It's getting there. These little plastic knobs are going to be fun. You can use like wood glue or E6000 or something else. I'm just doing hot glue. They might just pop right off and I'll have to re-glue them, but just so that I can get them on there today or during this live. I also saw that you can use hot glue with E6000. The hot glue will hold it there while the E6000 sets. E6000, that's what it's called, right? This stuff. Because this stuff is like a permanent, crazy strength stuff. Oh, that's so cute. Okay, so I'm going to try to give these a little bit more copper. They're definitely going to need a few coats, which is okay. They're easier to paint once they're on here. Should have spray painted them. I wasn't thinking. That would have made my life a lot easier. Next one. Just let it dry completely between coats if you're doing something like this, so that you're not just pulling that first coat off with your second coat. If it's not completely dry, it'll start pulling it off, even with the patinas. Just get this thin first coat on there and it helps. Give your second coat something to stick to. So you get the idea. So the little feet will definitely look better than that with a couple more coats, because right now they look pretty janky. But I'm going to change your camera angle so you can actually see what it looks like as a little riser. I'll set it on something so you can actually kind of see. Super cute. Look at that. You can put a little gnome up here. It'd be a perfect little gnome pedestal, or anything that you just need that little oomph, a little lift. Okay, guys, that is it for today. We're a little bit longer today than the first and second day. I will put links to the goodies in the comments if you want. Everything is available at sentimentalsalvage.ca. All the stuff that I used here today, except for the little wood blanks. I don't have those on the website, but everything else is on there, all the materials that I used. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. I will go through the comments because I think I missed some. And yeah, if there's any questions, I will also be back here tomorrow morning at 10 for day 4. These have been fun so far. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And we will see you tomorrow morning, right at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Thanks, guys. Bye.